this is something that I'm surprised more people don't do. There's like a Godzilla attacking Europe or something.
Welcome to the Axe Podcast. I'm Hervé, co-founder of Quad AI, and today I have the pleasure to be joined by Ben from Flagsmith. It's an open source project, and it's quite exciting. Ben, would love to ask you first, what was the motivation? What does Flagsmith do? And maybe if you can run us through a demo.
Well, so Flagsmith is a feature flagging and remote config and A/B testing platform. Most people use it to do feature flagging, and then as you get more advanced using the sort of technique and the tool, you tend to use it for more advanced aspects like A/B testing. So it's like an API, a bunch of SDKs, and a dashboard that you can manage your flags with. It's kind of interesting. Some people are very well versed in the sort of technique, and some people have never heard of it. So if you haven't heard of it, I definitely recommend checking it out, because it can be super beneficial in terms of your overall engineering process. So it came out of it came out of a software agency that I'd been running for 20 years. And that was a kind of genesis of the idea. We still do work for large organizations that tend to have software engineering teams of varying sort of quality, and they're generally like working within constraints that are being put upon them by large enterprise organizations that are bureaucratic and slow moving. And we just saw these companies they just were unable to ship software. And so that was the genesis of the idea for a feature flagging tool. We just saw this problem that was happening again and again and again generally with large companies, where they'd try and release a sprint's work and something blocked it, like another team or another, dependency downstream from them, or some showstopper bug that they couldn't get fixed and through QA in time. And then they punt the release for a couple of weeks, and now they've got 4 weeks of work waiting to go live. So now it's twice as hard. And then it happens again and it happens again. And then like after 3 months, the CTO comes down from the boardroom and screams at the product manager and says, we need to ship this software. The product manager goes, it's going to break everything. The CTO says, I don't care. So, someone presses the button, and then 30 minutes later, everything's on fire. And we just saw this happening over and over and over. And so we were like, this is, there's got to be some tools that we can use to do to help with this. And feature flagging was a standout tool. And then we started thinking, and there were a couple of commercial offerings out there, but they were kind of expensive, and they were SaaS tools as well, which a lot of our customers, our clients would have shied away from. And so then we started looking at open source tools, and this was kind of 4.5 years ago, and there weren't really any out there. So, we did that sort of standard agency thing of like, well, let's knock one up, and, maybe it turns into something, but if not, it'll be fun trying, and we can open source it. That will be interesting, because we hadn't really open sourced any sort of, we'd done like tiny little libraries and stuff, but we hadn't open sourced an actual project itself. And we thought that would be interesting, and we'd learn something from that. And yeah, that was like 3.5 years ago. And it just, it just started to pick up traction in a number of different sort of directions. So yeah, that's how it came about. You can manage features within our environment here. And so as an example, I have this little demo feature that is currently turned off, and also has a value of red. And so if I turn this feature on and refresh my browser, then I get some little demo text come up here. And now everyone that logs into the platform can see that. So I'm going to turn it off. And you can also see that it's red, right? So we're configuring the component as well as enabling it within the platform. And that's basically like it seems like a really simple, almost trivial thing, but just being able to what we call decouple deploying code from releasing features is really, really powerful. And that was the core idea that we had with these large organizations that were our clients, right? That was the problem, was all of their work that they've been doing for the last 2 weeks was all bound up in this one release, right? So the deployment of the features and of the code and the release of the features was this one atomic unit. And this idea of decoupling these two things is the kind of power of the technique, really, which is if you break that coupling, it means that you can be deploying code as often as you like, but it's not tied to releasing those features. And then as you become more sophisticated with the platform, you can do things like turning on features for individual users or turning on features for groups of users. And being able to test in production also is hugely, hugely beneficial. There's an enormous amount of value in that. And we're trying to push this idea of of removing staging environments or test environments from your life completely, and just having a single environment that is production, that you push to and you test on, and you embrace, because there's a bunch of stuff like debt around non-production environments that we think can engender some like bad engineering practices. So there's a bunch of pillars. There's these kind of 6 pillars of that you need to embrace to get you to the point where you can remove all your other environments and just run and test on staging, on production, sorry. But feature flags is one of those. So, having really strong CI/CD processes, code review, really good testing coverage, et cetera, is some of these other pillars. But one of them is feature flags, because you need to be able to, be working on a feature, deploy that feature continually as you go, but then be able to look at how it's behaving in production before you release it to, to the rest of your user population. So feature flags is a really sort of important component of that. And interestingly, like, very large organizations, and even some like challenger banks, so Monzo in the UK, for example, famously only have a single environment. Google and Facebook do this, as a matter of course. Actually, a lot of our customers come from Facebook or ex-Facebookers, because they go and join a startup, and the first thing they want is a feature flagging platform, because Facebook has this gigantic, mega powerful internal tool that does all this stuff for them. So yeah, so that's the idea. It's kind of cool because you can demo the concept in like pretty much 10 seconds, and everything sort of, everything follows on from that, really.
I really thought that was interesting what you said about eventually having just one environment and getting rid of staging and development. Would that work even on backend code or when you want to have like an improvement or a bug fix on a specific feature? And then would you have to duplicate that code, and one that has the flag and one that doesn't have the flag, so that you can toggle between the two? Is that the idea?
Yeah. So most of our customers, when they start using feature flags, they start using them on the front end, and they tend to have a more natural fit managing user interfaces. And quite often you can gate code through a user interface, right? So say you're working on a new feature and you've got an API that you're building out for the back end. You can deploy that endpoint that's new, because it's not tied up to any front end, right? So it kind of naturally lends itself to initially to managing front end aspects. But yeah, no, I mean, when we say remove staging, and we mean it everywhere. We mean have one environment across the entire organization. And so, yeah, so that means, we have client side SDKs, but we also, have, I think, 9 different server-side SDKs where, yeah, like, if you've got 2 radically different code paths, let's say you're using search engine X to do your search engine for your e-commerce store, and you decided that search engine Y is going to be better. And you can start building the integration into search engine Y, and then you can flag those 2 code paths, right? So you can have like a huge, you can light up like a big chunk of code just through a flag if you want to. And in the same way, like on the front end, we have customers, they'll build a new onboarding flow, for example, which could be like a complicated, could be like a 7-screen onboarding flow. And they'll gate the old flow with the new flow. And then they can use the platform to drive A/B tests. So they can send half their customers down the old one and half down the new one, and track what the performance of those 2 are like compared to each other. So yeah, no, I mean, we mean do it everywhere. It's kind of one of those things where you can't really be half in and half out. You need to, you need to literally delete staging and start, it's great because you start caring about writing tests, right? If you've got a QA team in a staging environment, tests are a burden that bore and annoy you as an engineer, because you kind of don't care about them, right? But if you're pushing to production all the time, multiple times a day, you care greatly that the quality of your tests is high and your coverage is high, because if you're missing, if you've got big gaps there and you push some code that is wrong, then it's on your neck, right? It's like, so there's a whole bunch of stuff around this idea that we think is really positive. And yeah, like, getting engineers to care about their tests because they are covering them rather than anyone else is really important.
I've seen a lot of teams in the past, mine including, trying to build our own in-house solution, right? And it often ends up in this big ball of mud. Can you tell us why it's probably a bad idea to do this internally, and what have been the biggest technical challenges when building Flagsmith?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think it's always a bad idea to do that. Like, a lot of the people we do talk to are in that situation where they started, it's like a Boolean, right? How hard can it be? It's like one table in your database. And it can start, they generally start off like that. I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea to do that, but the thing about, and this is something that we talk to our customers about as well, is this concept isn't a silver bullet. It's still, flags can be regarded as technical debt just as much as code, right? So if you've got flags that I literally spoke to someone this week and they were like, yeah, we've got this internal tool, we've got thousands of flags, and we don't know what some of them do, and we don't want to touch them. It's kind of like, this kind of, it's debt, right? It's like, you don't want to like those sort of bits of your software that you're not going to go near that because it works and no one really understands it. And flags can be the same. So you have to understand that they're not this kind of magic bullet that absolve you of doing a bunch of good engineering. And they need to be, house kept and cleared out. And, you can have long running, you can have flags that run for the lifetime of the product, right? If you want to have a kill switch to stop people logging in, for example, like, you would never want to remove that flag. But if you're working on a feature, just say you're working on this new search engine and you deploy it and it's, way better, and you decide, right, we're going to turn off the old search engine and use a new one, then, the next stage in that workflow is delete the flag. and delete the flag from your code, because it's if the old search engine doesn't exist anymore, if you've stopped paying them, and they're not indexing your stuff anymore, then it's debt if you haven't removed that code. So that's that's a really important concept. And so so what tends to happen with the customers we speak to who've built stuff themselves is they start off building it as a single table, and then oh, it would be good if I could override this feature just for me, or if I could override this feature for people who log in with their company email address or whatever. And they maybe build it kind of not as a generic solution, but as a specific one for them or their product. And then some other team gets hold of it, and and then it gets to be, because it's critical infrastructure as well, right? Like it's really, that's an important point to get across. And so now it's like, right, well, it's critical infrastructure and we've got a bunch of teams using it. Now we need to assign someone to be working on it, because if there's bugs in it, it affects our products, and or if it's going down all the time because it can't handle the load or whatever, and then like before you know it, you've got like an engineer working on it full time, and then they go on holiday and it fails, and then now you've got 2 engineers working on it, and then now you're spending like 6 digits running a feature flagging service, and and then someone asks a good question of like why are we doing this? So yeah, I'm not saying buy always and don't build, like that's not our sort of perspective, but we're happy for people to start building it, and then when they realize that they've crossed that line of that economic sort of decision, then they generally start talking to us or or our competitors, because it's just an obvious thing to do. Yeah, but it is really common.
Yeah, I think it is almost like, in terms of level of maturity between when you start and you want to keep it simple and you just maybe have 1 or 2, and as you grow and you want to get more and more fancy about when that feature is being shown or not, and that's when I guess that part gets really it gets hard to manage, because we haven't thought through, well, what else do we want to do with a feature flag, which with Flagsmith you have, which allows you to do a lot of really great things out of the bat, and while keeping it simple at the same time.
Yeah, I think also what happens is a lot is let's say you're writing a Rails application, you build it in Rails, and so there's no common interface. That it's Rails, right? And then the React guys want to start using it, and they're like, oh well, let's try and hack this interface into this Rails thing, and and then before you know it, you've got all these different ways that you're consuming this data. Whereas if you do it, with a platform like ours, you've got everyone's writing to an API that's defined and works and isn't Rails specific, for example. That's really common as well.
Yeah, I want to walk through a bit of your code, because I thought there was some interesting, obviously a lot of interesting parts. And here I'm going to use Quad AI, or code search engine powered by AI, to do this. And the first thing, I guess I'm trying to understand a bit of the domain, because one of the big things inside Flagsmith is everything that has to do with identity, right? Identity is a core concept of Flagsmith. Can you explain a little bit what an identity is and how maybe it relates to something that I wasn't clear about it, which is traits, and how they're used inside your application?
Yeah, sure. So generally, and what I demoed earlier, that was changing the value for an environment. So everyone logging into the platform at that point would have seen that little demo text show up, which is kind of a blunt way of working with flags, right? It's like you're turning it off for everybody or on for everybody. And what typically happens is the moment after someone's gone, right, oh, that's good, I can gate this flag for everybody, is right now I want to be able to gate it for myself or for my team or for this customer or for these beta users. And that happens really, really quickly, that's like kind of, after you've done the 10-minute, like get it up and running, the 11th minute is like, right, how do I turn it on for myself? And so the platform has this sort of entity object of identity as a core sort of primitive within the platform. And that when you're requesting your flags from the platform, you can tell the API who you are. And that might be like a GUID or a user hash or something like that. And as soon as you tell the platform who you are, it allows you to toggle the flag or set of flags for use specifically. So that's kind of like the next stage, which is right. I can be working on a feature. I can deploy my code to production. It's disabled in production, but I've turned it on for me. And now I can test in production against production code and production data and production APIs and so that's the kind of second stage, which is managing features on an individual level. And then the third stage is managing features on what we call a segment level, which is like a group of users. And so identities are basically normally users. I mean, they might be anonymous browsers, but generally they're authenticated users that have an identifier that doesn't change. But they can also have traits, and traits are key value pairs that are basically metadata around that identity. So when you're within the SDK, you can say, okay, hi, I'm user F7G3, but I've also got these traits about me. So an example that we use is I'm going to store my email address that I log in with as a trait within the platform. And so what that allows me to do is it allows me to group my users based on those traits. So within Flagsmith, we have a segment, a group of users that's called the Flagsmith team. And the segment is just a simple rule that works on the traits of the users. And it's just a regular expression that says, if the email trait matches at flagsmith.com, then this user is part of this segment. And if it doesn't, then they're not. And so when I request my flags, I'm in the Flagsmith team segment, right? Because I'm logging in with my Flagsmith email address. And the platform knows that because of my trait. So now I can start managing flags at a segment level. So I can roll a flag out to everyone in the team and say, what do you think about this feature? Does it work for you? Did you like it? Blah, blah, blah. But I can also start creating a list of beta customers or, whatever trait data I provided to the platform, like how many flags they've created or when they last logged in, or if they're a gold tier customer as opposed to a bronze tier customer. So now I can start managing the features of my platform using Flagsmith, being powered by these traits and by these segments. So that was it was kind of interesting because the sort of design of this came out pretty naturally and pretty quickly as we started building the platform. And it's kind of been interesting to see because different feature flagging products approach this in sort of slightly different ways. But yeah, they all tend to work on this idea of providing metadata around the session that you can then use to modify these flags. So yeah, that's kind of like sort of level 2 of feature flagging, which is like you've got your decoupling of deployment and release, and that's working for you, and everyone's happy. You've deleted your staging environment, and you're saving a ton of money and not paying it to Amazon. And now you're managing the features within your platform, at runtime using the platform.
So essentially, an identity is almost like a visitor or a user or a representation of somebody using your application. Trait is almost like it's a property of that
That's
user.
right. Yeah.
And then a segment it's a group of user that's and I guess there's a rule that takes in those traits and match them to a specific segment.
Yeah. So it's a rules engine, basically. Yeah.
Right. Okay, fascinating. Thank you for that. So one of the things that I did too while looking at Flagsmith was trying to figure out what database to use, or what was the data layer. And I found that really easily by searching database, and I realized that in your Docker Compose, you ended up using Postgres. Can you explain for a lot of us who use MySQL the pros and cons of Postgres, and why you ended up picking Postgres?
That's a good question. I don't think there are many pros and cons, to be honest. I think there probably were a while ago, but I mean, we used to use Postgres a lot. We used to use MySQL a lot. Like, 15 years ago, we were building, applications for our customers on top of it. With MySQL, it's a little bit unfair because a lot of the complaints people have about MySQL is unfounded, because you can use different table engines within MySQL, and there's decent ACID compliant ones that exist, within it. There were a number of factors that we wanted to balance out, right? We wanted it to be not some crazy database that no one had ever heard of, because, when we're selling that on-premise, customers are going to freak out and go, I've never even heard of that, and it's storing all our data. We're not using that. We also wanted it to be something that people who wanted to hack on the platform and work on the open source side of it, it was well understood, and wasn't some crazy esoteric thing that no one no one got. Like, it's a solid platform. We use it purely as a, because our API is built on Django and Django REST framework. So, all of that kind of stuff is encapsulated away. We actually, which you can't see because the code is not part of our open source repository, is we do support Oracle and MySQL as well. But they're paid for features. So one of the things that we've gated on around the enterprise side is, if you want to run open source, then you can run Postgres. But if you want to run Oracle or MySQL or SQL Server, for example, then that's part of our enterprise product.
One of the other things I went to explore in the Flagsmith code was the idea of where the flag rules are being evaluated. So for that, excuse me, I searched on the Flagsmith client. So you have an SDK for every client, for quite a few number of languages, so that they can be used with the API on the Flagsmith side. And from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, the SDK will download the identity from the from the API itself, and the identity contains the traits and the feature flags. Is that correct?
So the SDK generates the identities are kind of lazily created, and the traits are lazily created and persisted the first time they're seen. So you can, if you're using the same identity across two different, like, let's say you've got a web application and a mobile application, if they're using the same Flagsmith project and you're using the same identifier, then those traits are kind of shareable between those two platforms. So because we persist those traits within our database, so the SDKs send that trait information up to the platform, but you can kind of you can think of it as like a sort of a little data store for your users, basically. So if I write a bunch of traits to my user in the mobile application and then open a web application and grab the identity with the same identifier, those traits will also come down to that platform. So they kind of allow you to have a consistent view of an identity across different platforms.
And then,
But the other really conceptual thing around flags is, like you said, yeah, where does that engine run, right? And when we built Flagsmith, we decided that, and it's actually interesting because we're about to do a bunch of work around this, but we decided that the flag engine should run within our server. And so that's different to some of the other projects out there. And some have got a hybrid approach now, but we didn't want the flags to be evaluated on the client. And the main reason for that is that for them to be evaluated on the client, all of your segment definitions and all of the data around your environment needs to be sent to the client. So, and then the client brings the data and the flags get evaluated and the rules engine runs within the client. One of the reasons we didn't want to do that was because we didn't want to re-implement the rules engine in 12 different languages, even though that would have been a really fun engineering process. But the main reason is that we were like, well, if let's say I create a segment called, like, bad customers, and then identify the rules, create the rules that define what a bad customer is. If someone logs into my platform and grabs the environment and has that rule engine run in their browser, you can just go open the browser console and say, okay, well, show me this JSON document that Flagsmith just sent me, and all of a sudden you've got access to, this definition of bad customers. And so that idea of leaking that environment data to, because our SDK API is public, right? Like you can grab the Flagsmith flags using a curl endpoint, or and anyone can do it. By design, there's no authentication around that. And so we just thought that was a really and it's also something that an engineer might not consider as a potential sort of security weakness. And so we just thought it was a bad idea. And then also it means that you don't have a single REST endpoint to grab flags, right? Like, because you're not grabbing flags, you're grabbing a bunch of rules, and then you have to run some compute to get your flags. And so we were like, well, no, I want a REST endpoint that sends me my flags and nothing else. So our SDKs have no notion of segments or traits or anything of that nature. They just get flags. Now, I talked about the reasons why you might not want to have the rules engine on the client. But one of the problems with that is that you have a latency hit every time you want to get flags. And on a client-side device, so like on a web browser or a mobile application, that's not too much of a big deal, because you generally grab that data when the application's starting up or when the mobile application's starting up. But if you're using them server-side, it can be painful. And so what we're actually doing now, and this is kind of following on a little bit how LaunchDarkly do it, who are like the big kind of elephant, gorilla, whatever you want to call it, massively well-funded company. They've got a really good product, is they have a hybrid. So the runtimes that you don't control, which would basically be the mobile apps and the web browser, they have server evaluated flags. So they just send the flags to those clients. The runtimes that you generally do have control over, which is generally the server-side runtimes, they then send all the segment definitions down to, let's say you're writing it in Java. So you're writing a Java microservice. You grab the flag meta, you grab the environment's meta information, and you store it within your Java environment, which is secure, or you hope is secure. And then you don't have to, when a request comes in and says, like, okay, what is this feature on or off? Because the SDK has that rule engine built in and it has those rules there, it can then evaluate that without having to make a request out. And that's what we're working on next, is we're working on building this rules engine and implementing it in these 12 different languages. But what's interesting also is we're about to release a beta feature, which we've been working on all year, which is an edge API for our SDKs. So, one of the problems that our customers had was, if you're requesting your flags and you're sat in Sydney and our data centers in Europe, you have to wait, your latency here is kind of painful. If you're in London, then it's not so bad. So what we've done is we extracted the rules engine and we've implemented it as a Lambda. And then we're using Lambda at edge and DynamoDB to provide an edge network for those SDK calls. And we're literally about to start offering that up as a beta feature to our customers. So, but we had to extract the rules engine from the Django project in order to do that, because it runs as a Lambda. So it's kind of fun now. You can look on GitHub. We've got a repository called the Flagsmith engine, and it's about 600 lines of code. And it is that entire engine basically. So that's extracted out, and that's now part of the Lambda as well as the core API. But now we've got this 600 line implementation in Python that we need to rewrite in Elixir and Go and Rust and all those fun languages. So yeah, but that's one of the main fundamental differences between the products out on the marketplace, is how they try to deal with that problem of where those flags get evaluated. And it's actually a difficult problem, because you've either got a latency performance here, or you've kind of got a sort of like a security, issue or something that, something you need to be aware of as an engineer. And we really didn't want to increase the mental load of the people who are implementing the platform, having to worry about, where's this being, they've got enough to worry about. So yeah, so that's what we're working on next, is implementations in those languages. So if you like writing Elixir and you fancy a fun weekend project, then it's waiting for someone to do it, basically. Yeah.
So basically a hybrid approach. I mean, you started with, if I understand correctly, so that's the Flagsmith client, and the identity, from the identity, you just make one call and you get the flags automatically.
That's right.
So I guess that the idea behind that is really just to minimize the latency and just have one call, and then you can cache that on the client side so that it doesn't have to make any. Okay, got it. And then on the server side, you have it seems a few endpoints that are used by the client SDK. The identities one is the main one that allows downloading of the identity. I was curious, what does the flag one do?
So that just gets the environment's flags. So if you don't care about, so generally if it's like an anonymous browser, let's say it's your homepage and, it's just an anonymous browser. You don't really care about that browser. You don't want to track it. You don't want to run an A/B test. You can just ask for the flags for that environment, which are the default flags that you see when you log into the Flagsmith dashboard, basically.
I see. So you don't need to, the identity that matters less in that situation, in a sense.
Yeah, if you just want, if the context of that request is you don't care about the person making it or the entity making it, you can just request the flags for the environment. Actually, interestingly, I think probably 80% of the calls to our SaaS API are for identities, and about 20% are just for an environment's flag. So yeah, the majority of them are people requesting flags for a particular individual, because that's generally, it makes kind of most sense, right?
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense, and that you optimize the latency for that. So I think it's the get identity feature. Here we have a bunch of tests. I'm going to ignore those tests. Let's see what we get. And this is the main call that does is that the main call for getting the identity, and from where the rule engine.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah. How long does it take? How long does it take Quad AI to index all this stuff?
Just a few minutes. Yeah, just a few minutes. It depends on the size of the repository. So, but on average, it'll take about 10 to 20 minutes on I would call it mid-size repo. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's really interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good
Yeah.
because I can never find that code.
Yeah, no worries. Cool. And actually, one thing we do is we have a contest to create a PR for the open source project. If you'd be interested, we give away t-shirts and swag from our company. And if you guys have some also, and maybe it sounds like the translating the Flagsmith engine from Python to Rust, Elixir, Go, Java, JavaScript would be something that may be interesting as a contest.
Yeah, that would be great. Like,
Okay.
as I say, it's 600 lines of code. Well, it's Python code, so it might be more if you're if you're writing Java. But I'm not religious about that, so I won't make any jokes about it. But yeah, like that would be a really fun. We're actually just putting together a test harness and a bunch of test data, because we obviously have to prove. We want to be able to prove, well, not prove, but demonstrate through a bunch of a large amount of test data that that those rules engines operate identically to each other, because you can imagine the problems if they didn't. So yeah, so we're literally doing that at the moment. So if that's something that you fancy, and you want to get stuck into that, that would be amazing.
It's basic. It's not just basically, but it's translating the existing Python code to other languages, and
That's
that would
right.
be available as a. Is that client-side code or is that server-side code? Then it is
Well,
client-side
yeah,
code.
it depends on it. No, actually, well, it will run server side. The only places it will run is server side. So
Mm.
actually, annoyingly, the only language we're not going to implement it in is Swift, because Java, Android, obviously it can, Java runs server side more naturally, and JavaScript we have a Node SDK as well, so we can't get away with that. But yeah, so pretty much any language you want to write it in apart from Swift. So
And so the idea is to run the rules engine on the server side of all those languages. Is that right? Is that right?
that's right. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So they don't have to make repeated calls every time they want to evaluate the flags for a particular identity. That's right.
Mhm. So Flagsmith is loaded in production environments with critical apps. If it fails, obviously, it could crash the experience of users. Uh, how did you build the resilience and fault tolerance into your architecture?
Okay, so yeah, so firstly, and we tell customers this all the time, is your application has to behave normally, even if it doesn't get a request back from the platform, right? That's really, really important. So, you open the app and you walk into a lift and the app's opening and now you don't have reception, you're not going to get a result back from Flagsmith, right? So, um, the number one single most important thing if you're implementing any flag engine, any flag feature flagging platform is, don't expect a response from our server, which sounds funny, but like that happens all the time, right? Like, and I don't know, you might be in a hotel and the DNS is shot to bits in the hotel, and it's not our fault that you don't get the request back, but you don't, right? So that's a really, really important concept that we tell our customers all the time is, well, on the front end anyway, you must really consider flags as kind of like a progressive enhancement, right? Like, don't consider them as like, my app doesn't work because I don't have access to Flagsmith, right? And for me, like, the example I give is your app should still work if you're on an airplane and you load the application on your laptop, right? Like, because you can't always expect that to be available. In terms of the API, we do care a lot about our P99, 95 latency, and our uptime. And that was one of the reasons that we built this Edge API, was that, we can rely and lean on AWS and Lambda at Edge to do that. And also lean on DynamoDB global tables to do that as well. And so our core API, the one that answers requests for the dashboard, toggle flags and stuff, that's still containerized and fault tolerant in a single AWS region. But the SDK endpoints are like Edge endpoints. So, and then you get a bunch of free stuff like, well, theoretically, right? If AWS EU West 1 goes down, then we could, it will theoretically naturally start routing requests to EU West 2 or what have you. And yeah, basically, if the API goes down for whatever reason, it's basically like Lambda's down or Dynamo is down, and at that point, it's nothing that we can do anyway. So, yeah, like, there's
90% of it.
yeah, it's something, there's like a Godzilla attacking Europe or something. So yeah, so that was the main, that's why we've been working so hard on this Edge API, because it gives us two massive benefits. Well, actually, it gives us the third one as well. So it gives us low latency globally. It gives us redundancy and fault tolerance, but it also gives us scale, right? Like if I'm running Lambda Edge and DynamoDB, I don't have to worry about Postgres connections. I don't have to worry about, like read replicas. I don't have to worry about any of that. It's like I'm leveraging two things that were built for internet scale solutions, right? So yeah, so there's three things that are all working in concert there. And I think that's something that we're going to see more is like, it's, if you're building front end stuff now, like Vercel, which is amazing. I love the products. Like, it's front ends are edge served now, right? Like if you're not edge serving your front end, like there's no reason not to really. But I think we're going to see it more on APIs as time goes on, which is much harder because you've got to manage state and cap theorem, database stuff and consistency and all that sort of thing. But we're really lucky because the requests that we're serving at the edge are easy. They only require two documents. They require the identity and the environment. So we don't have to worry about transactions or a lot of that hard stuff. But I do think that we'll see that more and more, where people have an expectation of like this, more like state-based stuff being moved to the edge. And like we chose Dynamo. We looked really hard at durable objects by Cloudflare, which is super interesting. But we have this really kind of difficult problem where we have we generally get one request for an identity maybe a day, and it has to serve that request in like 70 milliseconds, right? So we can't cache it because the first request is going to be slow. The data has to live all around the world because I don't know where that request is going to come in from. You can't shift that data around, which I think like durable objects does a little bit, like regionally, depending on like request load, because it's just one time that it's going to be requested. So we've got some things that work for us and then some things that work against us. So that's definitely something that I'm really interested in. And it's kind of interesting to see these different, it's mainly the data stores, right? Like interesting different solutions to that problem. Like there's MongoDB have one and Azure has one and Cloudflare have two. AWS probably have more than two, but I don't know what they are. But yeah, I think that area is really interesting.
By moving to the Lambda Edge, you also changed the data store to DynamoDB? Or I see.
Yeah, but only for those two things that we care about being replicated, which is the environment data and the identity data. Everything else is still in in Postgres. So we have kind of like a hybrid.
I see. I see. But then you are still able to do writes on the DynamoDB and it replicates over.
Yeah, and they replicate. Yeah,
So
DynamoDB is an amazing product. Like, and the global tables is really, really, really an amazing product. Yeah.
you have issues then with, I mean, not issues, but the joins between Postgres and the DynamoDB?
No, it just writes through from Postgres, and we're still designing how that's going to work out. Like, we're not sure whether they might be completely isolated. So if you write an identity to the edge network, whether that gets written back into Postgres. But our plan on our SaaS product is to migrate all of the identity data onto Dynamo so that we can scale forever, because we have customers with like, you can imagine, right, with a large number of identity records.
It's fascinating to have that conversation with you. I'm learning so much about feature flag and like those mind-bending ideas about where the future might go and the challenges of it.
What's kind of interesting to me as someone who's been, a software engineer for 25 years, is how a really simple technique kind of impacts like processes and how teams work. And I don't think people really talk about that all that often. And one of the things that I kind of like about it is, engineers tend to do stuff because they have to do it, right? They tend not to, like I was saying about writing tests, right? If it's your 3 a.m. call on Sunday morning because someone's broken everything, then you care about the tests. And I don't, there's a lot of what I consider really good engineering practice that can be based around just using flags. That we weren't really, when we started the project 4 years ago, we were just like, we just need to write something that can help these guys ship their software, because they just, it's like the same every 2 weeks and it's driving us crazy. But over time, I've spent like kind of 4 years thinking nothing but feature flags. There's a bunch of other stuff as well that is built around that. And especially, like a really good example is, if you start using the engine to drive A/B tests, right? And then all of a sudden, you've got we see this a lot where the business analysts who have, a login to Snowflake or Tableau or Amplitude or whatever, they never talk to the engineers, right? And if you're using a feature flagging platform to do this stuff, and I've been in meetings or Zoom calls with clients where the analysts analyzing the behavior of the product are meeting the engineers for the first time, right? Like, and I'm kind of like, this is crazy. Like, how can you not? They're not even in the same. I think they're in the same country. And it's like, you guys meet each other because you now need to talk to each other because this person's written this new login flow, and you need to track it, right? And so like that kind of, these guys now need to talk to each other because in the past there wasn't a kind of tool that brought them together. Do you know what I mean? It was like the product generated signal and the analysts inferred what that signal meant. But now you've got this ability to drive, someone's built the perfect pattern is someone builds a feature, they put it behind a flag, and then the product team can test the efficacy of that feature before they roll it out, right? And all of that can happen naturally just because you put it behind a flag in the first place, right? You don't have to go through this like, okay, what stuff are we going to do an A/B test on next? Because it's like you can A/B test on whatever you want, really. And like that's another example that we had no idea about when we started building the platform, which is like, like a health, like it enforces healthy things to happen within the teams, not just the engineering teams, but like within the product team as a whole. So yeah, that's been really interesting to me.
Just better collaboration all over across the cross-functional teams of product and tech product, basically. This is like kind of like more productivity or open source related question. And so what's your favorite dev tool?
Well, I mean, the thing is, I have to work across like a bunch of different like languages and versions of everything, and it was an absolute nightmare up until I discovered a combination of two open source projects. One is called Durenv, and the other is called ASDF. And what Durenv does is it basically just triggers your shell to run stuff when you go into a certain directory. And what ASDF is it's kind of like a package manager for runtimes. So when I CD into, say, the Flagsmith Django application, Durenv is telling my shell to basically configure itself to run like Python 3.9.2 and Node.js 12, and it sets up a bunch of environment variables within that shell. And then if I jump out to, say, the Edge API we're building, then it might set up a different Node.js and a different set of environment variables. And it's so good. It like if you're only working on one project in one folder, then it's kind of, it's nice, but it's not like, oh my God, this is changing my life. But if you're working across, like 12 different languages, and someone's just gone, oh, it's not working in PHP 7 or whatever, you can use this combination of Durenv and ASDF to just say, okay, I for this project I want to use runtime like Python 3.7, and then it will just start using it. So that's been like a massive productivity boon for me. And you can store the definition of what those tool versions are in like dot files within the root of that project. So yeah, I keep raving about that, and a lot of people are like, that wouldn't change my life at all, because I work on one project and that's that. But if you work across multiple projects that have different like Python's a total pain to work with in that regard, right? It's just amazing. Yeah.
Is that you said it's spelled ASDF?
ASDF, yeah, that's the kind of meta package manager.
This one?
Yeah, and it's got a bunch of plugins, so you can use it to do like different versions of Python, but you can also use it to like install like Google Cloud tools or whatever. It's really, really, really good. And I'm kind of surprised that it's not like more well known, I think.
Yeah. It's almost like a shell profile manager in a way, where it can load different configuration profiles. Cool. And how do you spell the other one? Durenv?
It's DIRENV. Yeah. What that does is, basically when you enter a folder, you can have it just like you've basically got like a bash execution point that happens automatically, basically. And so that's the thing that then triggers ASDF to set up its environment, but also it can do a bunch of stuff, like it can set up environment variables for your local database connection, or do whatever you want, do whatever you want, basically. And when you leave the folder, it kind of unloads whatever that context you set up is. So just by moving folder, you can change the entire kind of shell. It's so good.
It sounds like it's really two tools that should be working together. I mean, that should be even combined.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're often used together. But yeah, they are separate, Unix philosophy stuff, I guess. Yeah, I can't rave highly enough about those two. They're really, really good.
I guess you answered your biggest productivity hack in one question, because it seems like those are the two tools that really save
Well,
your life. Or
actually,
do you have
no.
another
The
one?
other, yeah, no. That this is something that I'm surprised more people don't do. Having a clipboard manager is amazing. Like, if I ever see someone working without a clipboard manager, I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Like, it's so used. You know, you can, yeah, I don't know, just kind of, you can copy like 5 things into your clipboard manager history and then like paste them out, and you're not having to alt tab and stuff. And yeah, you know, or even like, you know, you can go and find, like I use a Mac, and I use Alfred, and I use a clipboard manager in Alfred, and you can like have copied an image or a screenshot or something like 3 days ago, and then you can go and find, you know, you're like, oh, I sent that screen grab to Matt in Slack like yesterday, but I now need to do it again. And like previously, it would be like, oh, which Slack channel did I send it in? And but you know, I have to scroll through his. You know, you can just go, oh, I'll just find it in my clipboard history and send it. So a clipboard history, you know, there's a bunch of different ones for different operating systems. That's like, yeah, I can't believe I went without one for so long. It's super time saving tool.
Where can we find your Twitter, your GitHub projects? What do you want to? How do people contact us? Contact you, sorry.
Yeah, so um, like our main entry point really is github.com/flagsmith. So that's like our GitHub organization. There's like, I think we're up to like 50 repositories, so a bunch of different stuff. So yeah, best thing you can do is find us there. We're starting to crank up Twitter a little bit more. That's at @getflagsmith. And then we've also, this has actually been really successful, is we created a Discord server a couple of weeks, maybe a month ago, and started putting the invite link on our website and our documentation. And that's been really effective. Like, we're still trying to figure out the best way of managing and kind of growing the open source community. And having that Discord's been really good. Like, you know, people just drop in and like, oh, you know, I want to take on this pull request. How should I design it? So yeah, the Discord server, you can find that link on our website. Join there, and if you've got questions, or you know, want to you know, help with the project, or yeah, contribute in any way, then that's the best place to find us. But yeah, the GitHub, github.com/flagsmith is definitely the number one point.
Thank you very much, Ben, for joining. If you too like to debug in production, give us a like, comment, or subscribe. Thank you.